Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to be using Photoshop and using some of the filters, but we've been getting into the system of non-destructive changes. So being able to edit and adapt things that we do. Now, what will also happen, and as sort of indicated here with this smart object, we're actually going to put this poster we create into a mock-up, a few different mock-ups. One will be a mobile phone and another will be a bus shelter. So you'll note that there are just a variety of dancer images you can use, and also there's some mock-ups. Oh yeah, the magazine one we'll also do as well. So we'll work pretty quickly, and it should all happen very straightforwardly. So what I've done is I've just created a folder, as we do, and popped these here. I think I also no, didn't go in. Might download this folder as well, just so we know what we're doing. Okay, so I'll just open these up. Just pop that in there as well. Bit of folder management never goes astray. So I'll be using these. So you'll be creating something like this. This is an interesting one in the sense that we're going to be playing with the perspective relations of an image, making it appear though it is in a three-dimensional environment. Of course, it's all just a Photoshop illusion. Okay, and we'll be doing something like that and like that. Okay, so what I've done, I've just got Photoshop open. I've just opened up an image. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop this up into 4 pieces. Now, what we have been doing is using the marquee tool to copy and paste. Just going to show you another way of doing it. Also, what I'll also be doing is I'm going to chop this up, but I'm actually going to look at the composition and divide it up according to the composition rather than mathematically. Okay, and so it's one of the things that we can do. So I'm just going to use my guides. I think I might pop it over here and drag one down from the top, just so I've got nice 4 pieces. Okay, not exact, but sort of using this. Now, as designers, you really want to think, it's a very organic thing, graphic design. What is aesthetic? What looks good? What works? More often than not, it's not mathematical. It's not an algorithm. It's more based upon feel and sensibility. So it's the sort of things that you'll look to develop. And so how you use type and these sorts of things are just based upon your own aesthetic judgments. Okay? So I'm just going to, using this guide. So guides are great because I can just click and drag and almost like magnetic action, the marquee will work. So what we've been doing is this copy and pasting, but what we can also do is go layer, new, layer via a cut. So that's just chopped it up. So that's a nice way. I mean, copy and paste will do the same thing, or but a copy and paste will also leave it on the layer below. So just remember to highlight your layers. Okay, so I'll just hide my guides. If you like your shortcuts, Command and the semicolon. And so that's across all your Adobe things. So that's just a quick way of using guides, but also just hiding them. So it's what I'm doing is view, guides, will show, and see, there it is there. Command and semicolon. Okay, so there's always a long way around, and you'll get used to these shortcuts. Now, as I mentioned, what I will do is I want this to be non-destructive editing. And so with all of this, let's just move things out the way, I need to convert to smart objects. Okay, so I can right-click, convert to smart object. I can hold the control key down, click, convert to smart object. I do that a lot because I use a graphic pen. And so I know the graphic pen, like the Wacom pen, has got like a button on it, but I just sort of tend to use two things, and I haven't mastered the button on my graphic pen yet. I can click up here in the layer panel options, convert to smart object. So you'll just work those through. So for this to happen, and as I said, this is going to be non-destructive, and they're almost going to be like mask layers as well, which I can adapt and work with. So what we're going to look at is this filter gallery, and we're going to be using some of these, and you'll find some that might work. So I'm going to start with operating this filter gallery. Now this is quite interesting. I'll show you some of my favourite ones in here. And so what happens is you've got some drop-down menus which I can play with. Okay, you'll get some options and things that we can adjust. So this is why it's also good to write some of these down, because you might create an interesting effect. Okay, so there's things that can work. Plastic wrap. Okay. Okay, so, and you'll have all these, my directions. Okay, so some of those are there, but the one that I quite like and that I've used to make evocative images in for some of the jewellery and shots that I've worked at, in Distort, there's this diffuse glow. And it can make a person, subject, quite ethereal with the glow that they have, sort of. And so I'll bring the graininess right down. You can sort of get, and so it works really, really interesting with skin and making them seem quite otherworldly. So things like that. Anyway, so again, the write these down, and the size of the image, like a large pixel dimension image, it'll be a different setting than a smaller one, okay? And so the smaller the image, the less you have to change things, okay? Like in terms of this. So I might use that on another one. Looking at some interesting approaches. So you'll note that there are some interesting effects that you'll find. Now, I will also say, I'll just cancel this, the foreground, background colour will have a large say in how these affect. So if you've got coloured foreground and background colours, they will come into the actual look of the image, okay? And so if you, well, let's just say we'll get a blue, get our lovely purple. Okay, so if I come in, filter gallery, some of the images, some of these will relate, none of them are at the moment. Okay, so the diffuse glow is dealing with the foreground and background colour. Okay, so just note that the colours you have here can have an impact. So I'm just going to change that back to black and white, come through and filter gallery. Okay, just have a little bit of an explore. I'm going to use the diffuse glow on the skin of the model, but I'll come into here and come in here. Maybe we'll do. Okay. So you can get some interesting effects. They can look a bit cliched as well, I will say, but sometimes they can work. So there we are. There's one. I'll come into this one. I'll just zoom in. Okay, I'll try that distort, diffuse glow. Bring the graininess down. See that sort of ghost-like, sort of vampire-like sort of feel? Okay, so you can get some interesting things there. And the settings here. Now, also note that this is a mask. So if I come in here and with our brush, okay, I'm actually painting out. So it is using that mask. So here, play with our size. I'll bring the hardness right down. And so I can actually do that. So up here, this one, same deal. Okay, so you can, remember I've got my brush size with the left and right buttons. So I can actually isolate where I'm making these effects work. Okay, so that's quite interesting. Again, this non-destructive editing. Okay. Now, also in the filters, we've got this filter gallery. So that's quite a good one. So that's, I won't say fairly new to Photoshop. It's been there for about 5 or 10 years, but it's sort of newish. for people who have been using Photoshop for a long time. Now, the other thing is these are also non-destructive. So again, because we've created that smart object, I'll go to the blur, and my preferred blur is the Gaussian blur, but you've also got some motion blurs and some radial blurs. Okay, so I'll do that. So you can see here, that's working. Now, obviously, that's gone a bit extreme. Again, so this is why we can use our mask layer. I can come back. And paint things back in. Okay, so just being able to sort of create a seamless blend between those. Okay, so I'll just do one more. So again, there's a whole lot of things to look for. The filter gallery sort of has a whole stack of them. I've put some brush strokes in this one. Maybe I'll go to the sprayed strokes, the stroke length, the radius. Got my direction, so let's just make this all horizontal. Go OK. And then we'll come in with our... All right. So we've got a whole range of things to play with. So the important thing there was we converted each layer to a smart object or a smart layer, and that has allowed the filters to be with this mask. So if we had not created the smart object, we'd put a filter onto it, but we couldn't get rid of it. We'd have to undo if we wanted to adjust it. We'd have to undo it and do it again. So this is part of the flexibility that we have with the smart objects and how we use them. Okay, so just have a bit of a play around. We're going to make this into a poster. So just to finish this off and get you all moving. So everything that we're doing, we're creating as mock-ups now. So last week we had our Pokemon poster, our Matilda's poster or the NBA poster. This week we've got the Sydney Dance Company. It doesn't have to be the Sydney Dance Company. You can make up your own community dance troupe if you like. So we do that. We just click. Now, actually, I might just undo that. Throw it in the bin. Rather than just clicking, I will click drag. So what I've done there is I've actually created a type frame. Okay, now that's going to be useful if I want to knock back Sydney Dance Company onto 3 lines rather than hitting the return key. So that, get our colours, can do any colour you like. Think about the, so I'm wanting you to think like graphic designers, and so type and ground. So when we put type, always think, how does the type sit on the ground? Is it legible? Is it strong? Is there a good contrast between it? So always think of how what your type choices are. Okay, and so here. Okay, so what I've done is I've made the type much larger. If I've got my character panel, so I like to use the character panel and the paragraph panel. So the paragraph is helpful for the alignment, and let's say that I wanted to, well, it'll make sense in a moment. Okay, right align works better if I'm placing it on toward the right side of the page. Okay, so think about how you use alignment. Center alignment, of course, will work best aligned to the center of the image. Left align. It's a real helpful approach to use. And so think about your typefaces. You know, as emerging graphic designers, always be thinking about your typefaces. What sort of typeface is the Sydney Dance Company? What's the personality? Is it a serif or is it a sans serif? Okay, is it modern? Is it italicized? Is it script? Big questions. As we start thinking about what sort of typeface is this? So maybe I will have an oblique, an italicized one. Okay, and of course, get the magic drop shadow fairy to wave their wand on my type, if that works, if it's not sitting. Okay, so the other thing, just quickly with type, here's a little shortcut. Rather than sort of clicking and changing, if I click in here, in the type, my up and down arrow will change the typeface, the size. Okay, so that's a handy one. If I hold my shift key down, it goes up in 10-point increments. Okay, so think about big questions. What is the leading? What is the space between the lines? Okay, what is the typeface? So away you will go. Okay,